Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing Disputationes Metaphysicae, Part 5 on Individuation, Section 2, whether in all natures the individual and singular thing as such adds something to the common or specific nature. An exposition of several views. Opinion 1, this is that of Scotus, Antoninus Andrea, Fonseca, John Baptiste Molnerius, and here are some of the supports. First, the opinion is that it does add something. The individuator adds something to that of the common nature, and they're distinct in reality prior to the action of the mind. And the supports are that this allows for demonstration in the sciences. The sciences are about common natures, not about pure individuals. The second support is that Peter can laugh because of his humanity. So Peter has some quality because of humanity. And a man runs because of Peter when Peter is running. So there seems to be this reciprocal kind of predication of man and Peter, where one gives the other some properties just in virtue of their connection, which makes which can be made sense of by them being distinct. Finally, support 3, support 3, if humanity was essentially individual, then there could only be one man, but there is more than one man, therefore humanity is not essentially individual. But what allows for humanity to be multiplied must be distinct from humanity. Therefore, there must be something distinct from man which causes him to be a singular thing. Support 4. Peter as Peter and Peter as man are different. Accounting for such a difference requires a distinction in the nature of the thing. Therefore, there is a distinction in the nature of the thing. Next, we have opinion 2, that nothing conceptual or real is added to the individual, is added by individuality to the essence. This is held by Occam, Gabriel, and Henry of Ghent. Support. Nothing can be understood as real unless it is individual. This is a principle from the last video. 2. Nothing common can be made individual by any kind of addition. You can't take something which is universal and make it individual just by adding something to it. And then support 3, the most sophisticated one. If an essence is individuated, it is either by an essential property or by an accidental property. If it be an essential property, then the species does not express the whole essence of a thing, but it does express the whole essence of a thing, therefore, etc. If it be by an accident, then an accident explains a substance rather than the other way around. Accidents are explained by their substances, therefore it is not by an accident. And then finally, opinion 3, this is that of the Thomists. Nothing is added to immaterial substances, but something is added to material substances. This is one of essential composition and not accidental. This is from Aquinas and his school, as well as hypothetically Aristotle. The supports for this are respectively found in the other sections, but they're just applied to specifics. The cause of the difficulty is exposed. Negation. Everyone agrees about negation. A thing is individual if it's not divided with itself and if it's divided with everything else. Does this require a real, conceptual, or non-existent ground? Is it accidental or essential ground? These are the questions which people disagree about. For example, Henry of Ghent thinks it requires a non-existent ground. SCOTUS thinks it requires a real ground. Then the solution to the question. SUAREZ'S opinion. Something is added to the common nature, and it's not something distinct in the nature of the thing. This is to say that it's something which is not distinct from, in reality, from the thing. It's only conceptually distinct. Arguments for 2. If the individuality adds something to the nature of the thing, then those aspects of the common nature and the individuator would have to be unified with themselves logically prior to their contraction to individuality with the thing that individuates. The unity of the common nature prior to their individuation could either be A, individual, or B, universal, but it can be neither A nor B. It can't be A because it has not contracted its individuality yet, and it cannot be B yet because only particular things can exist. Therefore, the individuator does not add something to the nature of the thing. SCOTUS'S workaround. Prior to the contraction by a heteity, a universal is neither individual nor universal. So SCOTUS says that before the singularity or heteity comes into contact with the common nature is actually indifferent. It is neither universal nor individual. So he doesn't have this problem. SUAREZ'S thinks this is of questionable coherence, and he says that communicable and incommunicable are immediately opposed. Everything is either communicable or incommunicable, and that means everything will be either individual or universal. And then he has multiple lines of attack based on this. If there are if the two are distinct, that is, the individuator and the common nature, prior to the action of the mind, then the common nature is either common or individual prior to the contraction by the individuator. If it is common, then something which is not singular actually exists in reality, even if only at a logical moment. All things that exist in reality are singular, therefore it is not common, so not A. If B, if the individual is, or if it is individual prior to the contraction of the individuator, then there is no reason, there's no need to posit a singularity, for it is already singular, but it is necessary to posit a singularity, therefore not B. This is a second version of the same argument. If the distinction is prior to the action of the mind, either A, the singularity constitutes the common nature, or B, it is added to it. If A, then it would be impossible to consider the common nature without the individuator. It is possible to consider the common nature without the individuator, therefore not A. If B, then the common nature must have some entity prior to the addition of the individuator. This entity is either C, particular, or D, universal. Nothing that really exists is universal, therefore not D. If C, then there's no reason to posit an individuator. Therefore, but there is a need to posit an individuator, therefore not C, and all of this taken in conjunction means that the distinction is not prior to the action of the mind. All this makes me kind of salty because I'm a SCOTUS'S on this position, at least at the moment, but if I can't find a good answer to these objections, I might have to become a SUAREZ'ian. These are interesting. SUAREZ'S opinion continued. The individual difference adds something conceptually distinct from the common nature, belonging to the same category composing the individual by contracting the species to an individual. This just means that he thinks that there's a conceptual distinction between the individuator and the common nature. It's not something which exists in act prior to the action of the mind. There is both the common nature and the singularity in the thing. Their distinction is a conceptual one. They both exist in the thing, but their distinction is simply conceptual. And this refers to both material and immaterial substances. That's important because there was a medieval controversy about the multiplication of angels. Many people thought that there could only possibly be one angel in each species. However, SUAREZ'S disagrees. For all of the arguments for the unicity of angels, that's the fact that there's only one angel in a species, either presuppose that individuation is derivative of matter, which he denies, or they beg the question by assuming that the angel is the only individual in its species by explaining something called extensive infinity, which literally just means that it's the only member of its species. So they just either say that angels have extensive infinity or that matter is the principle of individuation. The first one is false, or the second one is false, and the first one begs the question. There are no other arguments, at least not that SUAREZ'S knows of philosophically, for the unicity of angels, so he rejects that thesis. Answer to the bases of the other opinions. Against the realists, including SCOTUS and company, all of their arguments in favor of the first view can easily be accounted for by a conceptually distinct individuator. Against the nominalists, like Henry of Ghent, a conceptually distinct singularity grounds the double negation of division. That was the formula which says it is divided with itself or not divided with itself, and it is divided with everything else. Henry of Ghent thought there wasn't a foundation for this. SUAREZ'S thinks there's a conceptually distinct foundation. Against the main supporting argument of the nominalists, the singularity is essential, but is not contained in the species, so they deny one of the premises from the nominalists' main argument. And then against the Thomists, everything that has entity must have a singularity, not just matter. Otherwise, the Thomists' argument would fall to the same argument that SCOTUS'S view falls to. And that'll be all. I hope you've enjoyed.